Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It is Saturday, so we are doing another financial education video. We also on Wednesdays do portfolio reviews, so if you're interested in what we are buying and selling, come and check that out. For those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Paul Novak and I absolutely love personal finance, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And this week is not just any old week. We just cracked 400 subscribers. I literally cannot believe we've hit that mark. So my goal when I started this year was to have 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and we've already made it to 400. It's crazy. So, I'd really like to thank all of you who are watching these videos, supporting the channel, and we want to do something big for when we hit 500 subscribers. Honestly, I wish I could give away an index fund or something like that, but obviously that's not possible. But we'll probably do some sort of a gift card giveaway or something random drawing for all of you who have continued to watch the channel. Thank you so much for the support. And my goal for this channel is really just to break down all these different financial concepts and help teach those that want to get ahead how to make their money work for them. And this week, I am really excited to be talking about 401ks. As you know, I gear most of my content towards beginners and people that are starting investing, and that's what we're going to talk about this week, is just how to get started with a 401k. And I picked this topic because out of all my family and friends, not everybody's investing money in the market, but literally almost everybody that I know has a 401k. So I thought getting this video out could really help a lot of people. And I'm going to put this graphic up here on the screen because it's a literal situation one of my friends did. They opened up their 401k and didn't know what fund to put their money in. They literally put their money in a stable fund and let it sit there for 15 years, just not understanding what all the funds meant. And these numbers I pulled directly from my 401k. Our stable fund in my 401k has made over the last 10 years 1.92% average annually. On the flip side, if you were to invest in an S&P 500 fund, it's made 13.9% annually. So you can see how this graph, just by picking two different funds, can really change the growth that you have over time. And I don't want anybody here to be stuck with putting the money in the wrong fund and losing out on all of that growth. Hopefully you're finding these videos helpful, and if you do, I'd encourage you, smash that like button and subscribe. Comments are always welcome and we respond back to all comments. I also, if you look in the description below, have a lot of different links to, different investment options, different savings accounts. And if you click on those links, it offers a lot of free stocks, free cash, free things for you guys as well. And in this video, we are going to keep the content geared towards beginners, but we have a lot of different content to cover. So we're going to go through why you should be investing in a 401k in the first place. We're going to discuss the relationship between risk and growth. We're going to show how to find where your expense ratios are and how that can eat into the profits of your investments. We're going to go through the basics between what are bonds, what are stocks, and really what's the difference between the two. We're going to go through high-level asset classes with stocks and really the risks associated with them. I'm going to talk about what target date retirement funds are and kind of how they work. And lastly, I'm going to go over what some of my opinions are when it comes to 401k investing. And I've said it before, I've got chapters that's going to bullet point all this stuff out. So if there are specific things that you're interested in learning, you don't have to watch the whole video. Click on the chapter and go to the section that interests you the most. And with that being said, let's get into it. All right, so before we even talk about, the in-depths of a 401k, let's just start with the basics. What is a 401k? And really, a 401k is something that's really simple. It's a retirement plan that allows you to take a percentage of your check and deposit it into that account in order to grow money. And you can do that tax deferred. Most employers will offer a 401k plan, and what's great about the plans that they offer is most will offer some sort of a match, meaning if you put in so much money, the employer will also put in so much money, and that is free money. So I'll explain at least how my plan works. If I put in 1% into my 401k, my employer will match 0.5% up to 6%. So to simplify that, if I put 6% in my 401k, my employer will give me 3%. Anything that I put above and beyond that isn't matched, but that's just how my plan works. And something I have to recommend is if your employer is going to match anything that you put in, you should at least be putting in enough to meet that match, because if not, you're literally missing out on free money. So I strongly advise you to put in at least what your employer matches. And now that I said I'd strongly advise you to do that, the next thing I'm going to say, which is a little contradictory, is that this video is really geared towards going over a lot of the different concepts that are within a 401k. This isn't advice for exactly what to do and how to invest in your 401k. One, I'm not a financial professional and I can't tell you exactly what to do. And two, everybody's situation is different. It's definitely not a cookie cutter approach. So if you're brand new in your working career and highly young, what your investment strategy is going to be in your 401k is probably significantly different than somebody that's, let's say, 60, right, and only has a couple of years left to go for their 401k. So as I stated, I'm really going to go through how 401ks work and the funds within them, not how to invest in one. Now let's talk about some general terms, and I'm going to talk general because I want to keep this geared towards beginners. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is risk and growth, because they really do go hand in hand. So generally, if you're going to have something that's less risky, the growth potential is going to be lower. And if you have something that's more higher risk as we go through the video, the growth potential, and I'm going to stress potential because nothing's guaranteed, but the potential is higher. And when I'm talking about, risk and growth, I also want to talk about age groups, right? So if you're younger and just starting out in your 401k, you're going to want to take on probably more risky investments because you've got time to let that money grow and compound. And you can deal with big swings in the market because of how much time you have left to invest. On the flip side of that, if you're getting closer to retirement, you're going to want to gear more of your funds towards stuff that's less risky because you don't have as much time left to invest. And now what I really want to do is get into expense ratios and how that can cut into your investments. All right, so we're actually in my retirement account right now. That's what I have up on the screen. And obviously everybody's retirement account is going to look a little bit different. But you can see over here, when I look at all the different investment options that I have, it's got this expense ratio category over here. So I'm just going to pull up two different examples. I'm going to go from one extreme to the other just to show how these, again, can cut into your profits. So the lowest expense ratio I have here, which I find extremely funny, is this Fidelity 500 index fund, which if there was any investment that I'd recommend, it would be an S&P 500 index fund, which is what this is. You can see that my expense ratio here is 0.02%. On the flip side of that, I have another investment in here that has an expense ratio on the high end of 1.07%. Now, we're only talking a couple percentage points here, but that is quite a big difference. So now if I go here to compare the fees, and just to save time, I already typed all this information in, but let's assume that you started investing in this account at 20 years old, right? And you invest in this account until you're 60, and that's when you're going to retire, right? I've got the fees in here at 0.02 and 1.07. And the difference that comes out to is, almost $230,000 in this account. And just to explain where I got these numbers from, I used the investment here of putting away $4,500 a year. So if you're somebody that makes $50,000 a year, you're contributing 6% to your 401k, and let's say your employer matches 3%, that's where the $4,500 comes from. So you can see by doing that, just because of the expense ratios, and that's assuming both funds performed the same and had 7% returns annually, you're losing out on $230,000. We didn't even save in total $1 million, so that's almost a quarter of your earnings cut away. And that's why I think it is so important to look at those expense ratios before you decide what funds to pick. And I'd be very hard pressed to ever recommend a fund to invest in that's got a very large expense ratio. Anything over, 0.5% or 0.5%, I really would probably steer clear from. And if you watch my video on mutual funds, I literally go through again how all of that stuff gets calculated on those expense ratios and just go further in depth on how to calculate how that stuff can eat into your profits. And next I want to go through just really briefly the different asset classes and really how that gets impacted by your risk and growth. So the first things I want to talk about are really the difference between bonds and stocks. A lot of times when you're looking in your 401k, those are the two main asset classes. And bonds for the most part are going to be a lot more stable investment. And as we talked about earlier, if it's less risky, it's also got less growth potential. So whenever you're talking about bonds, those are definitely more stable than what stocks are. Stocks tend to be more high risk, and then with that comes higher growth potential. And then even within stocks, there's your international stocks, and those tend to be more risky versus your domestic stocks that tend to be lower risk. Now, when we're talking domestic stocks, and I promise I'm not going to break it down any further than this, but you'll notice a lot of times when you open up your 401k, you're going to see small cap index, mid cap index, large cap index, right? And I know early on when I started investing in my 401k, I had no clue what any of that stuff meant. So again, we're talking basic terms for beginners, but small cap stocks or indexes are going to be smaller companies. It's literally that simple. And generally with smaller companies, there's higher growth potential because they are smaller, but there's also more risk associated with them. When you get into mid-cap companies, your risk level comes down a little bit because they're more established, but also a lot of times does your growth potential. And then the companies that are the most stable and still present some risk because it's still a stock, but it's going to be your large cap companies. And those are going to be your Walmarts, your Apples, your Microsofts, Amazons, these really large companies. So when you're talking about risk within stock classes, small cap's going to be the highest, large cap's going to be the lowest. Then I wanted to take just a little bit of time and talk about these target retirement funds because these have become really, really popular in 401ks, Roth IRAs, a lot of different investment platforms. And really what a target retirement fund is it's a fund that automatically adjusts the risk tolerance as you get closer to retirement. And the best way that I can describe it is the closer you get to retirement, it starts converting your stocks into bonds, and that's how the risk level goes down. So I'm going to show on this screen just a comparison of two different target retirement funds. So the first one I'm going to pick is Target Retirement 2065. It's one of the funds that I've found that is out the absolute furthest that you can pick right now. And as you can see on the screen, it shows that the majority, like 90% of it, is invested in stocks, where only 10% is invested in bonds. Now, if I go to the other extreme, Target Retirement 2010, you can see that that flips exactly perfect. So this time you can see 90% of the investment is in bonds and only 10% of it is in stocks. So you can see how as time goes on, that really flips. Because these target retirement dates are more active, because as you get closer to retirement, they do convert, the expense ratios on them are higher. Now, I would say a target retirement date isn't a bad option. If you pick a target retirement date fund, I promise you, you're not going to be sticking your money in a stable investment and losing out on 15 years worth of growth. But for me, the target retirement date funds are a little too conservative. I personally don't have any of my money in bonds. I still have 20 or 30 years left to work. So I want all of my money out there in the stock market. And I also would rather pick my own funds and actively manage my account, because by doing that, I can really lower the expense ratios. And when I say pick my own funds and actively manage, that's a little bit of a stretch, because I'm not going in there on a regular basis and constantly moving my funds around. It just means that I can look at things in the beginning, pick the funds, set it, and forget it. And really the last thing I just wanted to talk about in this video is what some of my best opinions are when it comes to investing. And I say opinions because, again, I'm not a financial professional. And like I said earlier, everybody's situation's different, but I think these are some of the keys that I look for when investing in my own 401k. All right, so first off, it can be as simple as this when investing. There are two funds that I look for that have been extremely good over the years. If you can find a fund that tracks the S&P 500, I personally don't think there's anything wrong with putting 100% of your money towards that. Another fund that I look at as well is a fund called VTI. I invest in it in my own brokerage account, but it's a fund that tracks the total stock market. So by putting into one fund that tracks the total stock market, you're getting the small cap, the large cap, the mid cap. It's literally investing in everything. That's another fund that if you find, you could put all your money in there, and I think you would do really well. The second thing that I'd give as advice is if you've got 15 years or more left to invest, I personally would steer clear of bonds, just like I stated. One of the reasons I don't put my money in a target retirement account is because I don't want any exposure to bonds right now. I think all that's going to do is stunt my growth long term. And then, as I stated also in the video, look out for those expense ratios. That's something that when I started investing, I really didn't know anything about. I kept it really simple. I looked in the account, looked at the funds that have grown the most over the last couple of years and said, I think that'll be good. Let's throw my money in there. Now, since I've learned a lot more, and hopefully you guys are learning and watching this video, I know to check for those expense ratios and look out for some of those expensive funds. And I'd also encourage you, because a lot of people invest money in their 401k, set it and forget it. Do not do that, right? Go into your account, and I'm not saying all the time, maybe go in once every 6 months, but a lot of times there are new funds that are offered or just changes that have happened in the account. I do not want you to be like that person that had no growth for 15 years. It's because they never went in to really look at that account. So check it out and see if there are better options that are out there. And hopefully you found this video helpful about 401k investing. And if you do, like I always state, smash that like button and subscribe. Comments are always welcome, and we respond back to all comments. As I stated earlier, we've got a ton of different links below if you're interested in saving and starting to invest. I want to thank everybody for watching, and remember, we're going to do the 500 subscriber giveaway, so that's more incentive as well to subscribe. And we hope to see you back here next week, where we're going to talk more about saving, investing, and spending money. Have a good weekend.